Some people walk into a store like they're entering a parallel universe, one where physics is optional, logic is negotiable, and customer service workers apparently control the fabric of reality. You know the type. The moment something doesn't go their way, they hit you with that ancient battle cry, I pay for this, as if that phrase alone can bend time, reverse entropy, or summon a fresh sun into the sky. And just when you think you've heard the peak of human entitlement, they find a brand new way to outdo themselves. Trust me, whatever you've imagined, it gets much, much worse from here. 1. I once had a customer demand, not ask, demand, that I make the rain stop because it ruined the vibe of their outdoor brunch. Apparently, I was supposed to walk outside, raise my hand like a weather sorcerer, and negotiate with the clouds on their behalf. When I explained that even NASA can't pull that off without a few $1 billion and the moral flexibility of a Bond villain, they fired back with the sacred phrase, I pay for this. Yes, Brenda, you paid for a poached egg, not dominion over the atmosphere. But I admire the confidence. It takes a special kind of customer to believe the staff has a hotline to Mother Nature, and she's just been ignoring your calls. 2. A man once asked me if we could turn down the ocean, not metaphorically, literally. The waves were too loud, and they were interfering with his inner peace. He said this without irony, as if the Pacific Ocean were a misbehaving Bluetooth speaker we could just pair to a quieter setting. When I gently explained that we don't, in fact, own the ocean, he nodded slowly, sighed dramatically, and said, So what exactly am I paying for? I don't know, sir. Sunlight? Gravity? The privilege of existing on Earth. If he'd pushed harder, I'm convinced he would have asked us to pause the tides until he finished his nap. Sand. A woman once stormed up to the front desk to complain that her room smelled like outside. The hotel was located in a forest, a literal forest. Trees, birds, leaves, the whole package. She said she specifically booked nature without the nature, which I assume means she wanted fresh air that never originated anywhere near the outdoors. After a long, painful silence, she asked if we could vacuum the air or replace it with city air, as if we keep urban atmosphere in tanks behind the building like some dystopian flavor bar. When I told her this wasn't possible, she hit me with, Honestly, I pay too much to be dealing with air. Yes, exactly. 4. One guy asked us to heat the swimming pool to body temperature because he thought the water felt emotionally cold. Not physically cold, emotionally. He said the water lacked warmth as a host. I didn't realize we were evaluating the pool's personality that day, but apparently it failed the vibe check. He insisted the pool should feel like a hug. Sir, if any public water ever feels like a hug, we shut the facility down and call the CDC. He sulked for 20 minutes, then asked if he could adjust the thermostat since I pay for the right to comfort. I wanted to ask if he also pays for a grip on reality. 5. A customer once returned a blender because it didn't make food taste better. He fully believed the appliance should enhance the flavor profile, like some magical Michelin star fairy godmother. When I explained that blenders don't change taste, just texture, he stared at me like I'd personally lied to him. Then what's the point? He asked, outraged. I don't know, Todd. Maybe making smoothies without sticking your hand in a spinning blade like your ancestors? He demanded a refund, a replacement, and an apology from whoever decided this was the final design. Yes, let me call the CEO and tell him Todd from Ohio demands flavor alchemy. 6. A woman once insisted we digitally whiten the moon for her nighttime engagement photos. The moon, in the sky. She said it looked dingy and suggested we polish it or something. When we explained we don't control celestial bodies, she scoffed and said, Ugh, do I have to do everything myself? Then she pointed to a staff member and said, Can you at least get up there and adjust the angle? Yes, let him just casually climb 384,000 kilometers and reposition the moon like a floor lamp. Should take 5 minutes. 7. I once dealt with a man who demanded we clear all the birds out of the area because their chirping was unprofessional. He said the sound made it hard for him to strategize business moves, which I assume means sending emails and pretending to be busy. When I told him the birds live here and, shockingly, refuse to follow human scheduling, he leaned in and whispered, I pay good money to not hear nature. I wanted to whisper back, then go live in a server room. 8. A customer ordered a black coffee, then demanded a refund because it tasted like coffee. He said it should taste less bitter, more sweet, but still black, but also not like coffee. So, tea, water, existential despair. He accused us of false advertising and said he'd been drinking coffee his whole life and knew what coffee should taste like. Unfortunately, the version he described does not exist in this timeline. 9. A woman once tried to return an umbrella because it didn't keep her feet dry. She genuinely believed umbrellas should control rain distribution, directing droplets away from her body like some divine weather force field. When I explained that water falls downward, a scientific discovery humans made long before fashion umbrellas, she rolled her eyes and said, well, then it's a bad product. Yes, ma'am. Gravity is defective. 10. A man called customer support to complain that his Wi-Fi wasn't working outside in the mountains. He was, in fact, on a literal hiking trail. He demanded we upgrade his router remotely so it could reach him in the wilderness, where the air is cleaner and the vibes are stronger. When we suggested he might be too far from civilization, he scoffed and said, Signal is a mindset. Incredible. He tried to manifest broadband. 11. A diner once complained that their soup was too soupy, not too watery, not too thin, too soupy. They said it had the audacity to taste like soup instead of a warm, comforting experience with structure. And you know what they wanted? A refund because the soup identity was unclear. I didn't realize Consommé was going through a crisis of self. The chef asked what they expected, and they answered, something thicker, but also not thick. At that point, we were basically serving quantum soup, simultaneously thick and thin, depending on the observer's emotional state. 12. One customer returned a scented candle because it didn't magically clean the room. The label said fresh linen, and they assumed this meant it would create fresh linen energy, whatever that means, and remove clutter. They lit it, came back an hour later, and were shocked their laundry hadn't folded itself. They said the candle was misleading, and we should warn people that it's just a candle. Yes, imagine the horror. 13. A guy once demanded we replace his hotel pillow because it didn't support his neck's emotional needs. Not physical support, emotional. He said the pillow felt judgmental, like it knew he wasn't hitting his gym goals. I wish I were joking. He even asked if we had a pillow that radiates encouragement. I told him the best we could offer was memory foam, which at least remembers something unlike him. 14. Someone once asked if we could tell other customers to stop existing near them. This wasn't a private resort. It was a grocery store. They wanted an entire public space cleared because I prefer a quiet shopping environment where I don't have to look at people. Frankly, same, but reality disagrees. When I said we couldn't evict the human population, they muttered, unbelievable, I pay taxes. Sir, taxes don't buy solitude. If they did, we'd all be silent monks. 15. A customer once complained that their ice cream was too cold. They said it hurt their teeth, and therefore we should serve ice cream at a friendlier temperature. What temperature would that be? Room temperature, emotional warmth. They demanded we fix the recipe, as if the laws of thermodynamics were negotiable. I explained that ice cream must remain cold to, be ice cream. They nodded slowly, blinked twice, and said, well, maybe that's a you problem. No, that's a physics problem. 16. A customer once asked if we could make the sun set later because they arrived at the beach too late to get good photos. They said the sun was being inconsiderate and we should talk to whoever's in charge of scheduling. I had to stand there, straight-faced, explaining that the sun does not, in fact, take requests like a DJ at a wedding. They kept insisting there must be a summer mode or vacation setting. And when I told them the Earth rotates at a constant speed, they said, well, can't you slow it down? As if I'm back there in a utility closet cranking the planet like a rusty ceiling fan. They eventually muttered, this place doesn't care about customer happiness, which is technically true if the customer's happiness requires celestial recalibration. 17. Someone once demanded that we silence the ocean breeze, not stop it, silence it. They said the wind sounded passive-aggressive, like nature was gossiping about them. They had the audacity to ask if we could redirect it somewhere less judgmental, as though we run a meteorological traffic control tower where we guide wind currents into different emotional lanes. When we failed to intervene, they asked for financial compensation because the breeze interfered with their inner tranquility. I wanted to tell them inner tranquility shouldn't collapse the moment a leaf rustles. But no, they insisted nature should behave itself when they're around, which is exactly how you know someone has never ever camped a day in their life. 18. I once had a customer ask why their ice water wasn't wetter. They said it tasted dry, which is impressive because that is literally the opposite of what water does. They wanted it more hydrating, as though hydration is some boutique feature we lock behind a paywall. They told me, with a straight face, I've had wet water before. This isn't it. I wanted to ask if they were describing rain, tears, or maybe the moment they realized they don't understand liquids. They demanded a refund and said, next time, try using real water. I don't know what alternative they think we used. Powdered ocean? Diet humidity? But sure, buddy, we'll try to get you the version of water your imagination invented. 19. A woman once tried to return a mirror because it made her look tired. She said it was defective because she had seen herself in another mirror at home and looked far more youthful, which, based on the story, probably meant dim lighting and denial. She wanted a replacement mirror that would better reflect her potential. I explained that mirrors don't have motivational settings, but she insisted we find one that presents her the way she feels inside. If that's the requirement, we should just sell blank squares of glass and let people project whatever fantasy helps them sleep at night. She concluded by saying, a good mirror should flatter you, which tells you everything about her relationship with reality. 20. A man once demanded that we speed up the line, even though he was literally the only person in it. He kept checking behind him, confused that no one else was waiting, and finally said, okay, but can you make it feel faster? I asked what that meant, and he said, you know, give the experience more momentum. Momentum. Sir, you are standing still, buying gum. He asked if we could simulate urgency with sound effects or faster-looking movements. I don't even know what that means. Am I supposed to blur my hands like an anime character? He genuinely believed service should operate at the speed of his personal impatience, which, based on vibe alone, is just slightly slower than light. 21. Someone once complained that our freshly baked bread was too warm because it made their butter melt too aggressively. They said the bread should be room temperature or cooler because they didn't consent to butter liquefaction. I informed them that warm bread is, in fact, a desirable trait, and they stared at me like I'd confessed to a felony. They demanded we chill the bread before serving it, essentially requesting cold carbohydrates as a lifestyle choice. Then they added, I pay for control, not surprises. Bread temperature, a surprise. I didn't have the heart to tell them soup comes hot too. I didn't want to start a full existential crisis at table 7. 22. A woman once asked if we could stop the snow from falling because she didn't want her vacation photos to look wintry. She acted like we personally scheduled precipitation, and someone in the back must have accidentally selected the December vibes setting. When we explained that it was winter in the mountains, she said, well, then make it stop temporarily. Temporarily, like snowfall is a faucet. She wanted us to pause the weather so she could capture a specific aesthetic, which, ironically, was tropical chic. I suggested indoor photos. She said indoor photos don't feel natural. Meanwhile, her request involved altering an entire climate zone. Sure, January the 23rd. I once watched a customer argue that their pizza should have arrived pre-sliced at the exact angle of their personal chakras. They said the default triangular slices interfered with their energy flow and demanded more affirming geometry. When we asked what geometry that would be, they said, "You're the professionals. You should know." I promise you, no culinary institute on earth trained students in chakra compliant pizza cutting. They insisted the pizza shop failed to respect their spiritual journey, which is a bold accusation to aim at melted cheese. Eventually, they demanded a refund because the pizza vibes were off. Yes, the vibes. That's the issue. 24. A guy once demanded that our staff escort the clouds away from the view outside his hotel balcony because they were blocking the sunset he paid for, as if clouds are unruly guests wandering into VIP sections. He pointed at them like a bouncer choosing which troublesome patrons to eject. When we explained that clouds are, unfortunately, not employees, he said, "Well, someone must be responsible for the sky." It's shocking how many adults believe the heavens operate like a customer complaint department. If nature ever starts charging appearance fees, this man will be the first person banned for life. 25. A customer once tried to return a toaster because it didn't toast evenly, but the real twist is why. They only used it once and they put in a slice of bread that was already partially toasted. They said the toaster should sense previous toast levels and compensate. They expected AI level diagnostics from a $19 appliance that barely has the cognitive power to count to two. When I pointed out that the bread was pre toasted, they said, "Well, the toaster should have known better." I'm starting to think some of these people genuinely believe household items are sentient and just lazy. 26. Someone once asked if we could make the pool water less wet. They wanted to swim without the sensation of being submerged, which I believe is called not swimming. They said the water felt too watery and asked if we could thicken it slightly so it didn't cling to the skin as much. What they were describing was gelatin. They wanted to swim in lukewarm jello. I told them it's not feasible, and they said, "You're not even trying." Correct. I'm not trying to turn a pool into dessert. 27. A man at a tech store once asked us to fix his phone because it kept autocorrecting his spelling, except the words he was typing weren't words in any known language. He insisted the phone should understand what he means, because that's what smart technology is for. He believed the phone should adapt to him like a loyal dog learning tricks. He even asked if we could teach the phone his personal vocabulary by talking to it firmly. I reminded him the device is not emotionally impressionable. He said, "Well, it should be. I paid enough." Sir, you paid for a phone, not a psychic with a keyboard. 28. A woman once requested that we remove the reflections from her sunglasses because they showed things she didn't want to see, namely herself. She said the glasses betrayed her image and should filter out unflattering angles. We explained that reflections are not optional features. She insisted modern technology should know what to display and what to hide. So she wanted augmented reality, but only for narcissism. When we refused, she claimed we were gatekeeping confidence. If confidence depends on physics lying to you, I think the real gate is much further upstream. 29. A customer once tried to negotiate the price of gas at a gas station because it's just liquid and liquid should be priced by mood. He said today's gas felt expensive, so it should cost less. He attempted to classify gasoline as an emotional product and insisted companies should adjust prices based on vibes and energy alignment. I would have loved to inform him that vibes don't power engines, but at that point I feared he might try to run his car on herbal tea and positive thinking. He eventually demanded a discount because I pay for fairness. I wish he did. 30. A couple once asked if we could rotate their hotel room so the balcony would face the sunset instead of the parking lot. Rotate the entire room, as if it were mounted on some lazy Susan for guest convenience, when we explained that buildings are, surprisingly, fixed to the ground. They said, "Well, that seems like a poor design choice." Yes, Sorry we didn't build the hotel like a rotating restaurant at an airport observation tower. They asked if they could manually adjust it themselves. I'm sure the fire marshal would love that. 31. And finally, my personal favorite, a customer once demanded we upgrade their air because the air in their room felt too average. They wanted premium air, ideally the kind rich people breathe. They said the oxygen lacked luxury energy and asked if we could swap it out for something crisper, more exclusive. I explained that all air is the same unless you leave Earth, and they said, well, maybe you should offer that. Yes, let me just open the menu of Deluxe Atmospheres and fetch you a fresh batch of billionaire oxygen, hand bottled in the Alps by unemployed angels. This is the moment I realized some customers don't just want service, they want magic, and they want it at a discount. And there you have it, a full speed tour through the kind of customer logic that makes you question whether evolution just got bored and stopped updating the software. If you survived all that without losing brain cells, congratulations, you're officially overqualified for customer service. Now tell me in the comments, which request deserves its own monument to stupidity, and what unbelievable nonsense have you heard in the wild? Go on, share the chaos, and if you want more proof that humanity is held together with duct tape and bold confidence, hit like and subscribe. Trust me, we're nowhere near the bottom of this barrel.